Can comics dramatically change their tone during a run, kind of back and forth and survive? Well, the answer is yes. It's not common, but they can, and they have. Hey, everybody, this is Perch. Several years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I don't remember. Um, Savage Dragon by Eric Larson, decided to go down let's say, a more adult tone. And it didn't do so really subtly. It did so really rapidly, I think within the course of like 2 to 3 issues. And I remember this because a lot of retailers were suddenly surprised by what was coming. And it was not well marketed that this change was really happening. So, to be fair, though, I want to take a step back because Savage Dragon as a comic has always had kind of crazy, violent moments. It's had people like punching each other through things. It had Rapture would like have. It was in a very chilly room in a tight shirt. Let's put it that way. There's lots of kind of sexual innuendo, lots of things. It would be a PG-13, maybe. I don't know. I mean, Friends was on TV, and I swear to God, they kept that studio freezing. If Rachel's shirt was any indication, but it was a kind of PG-13. It was definitely probably more PG-13. If the violence was rendered on the screen, it might get to R at times because like people are just exploding in bloody pulps and everything else. But then suddenly it moved to kind of full frontal nudity, and it had various orgy sequences with Savage Dragon and his girlfriend and his girlfriend's friend and a different friend, and they had bits where like he would blast her across the room with his sperm, and I mean just that's the kind of stuff that was going on in the book, and it took a lot of retailers by surprise because it didn't the comic was, like I said, people got comfortable with that kind of PG-13 level of violence, and then suddenly it's like, hey, let's go ahead and draw this girl without her pants on in this issue, and the next issue we're going to have her riding the Savage Dragon. The next issue we're going to have you know Bukaki blast all over the room, and it happened really, really, really quickly. And like I said, people were surprised. Yeah, now, some of that I remember Larson pushed back on some people who were complaining on online of like, hey, you prude. Okay, on one hand, I understand, okay, but on the other hand, you've got a retail shop with comics out on the shelf, and you have parents, you have Karens or whatever else who will come into your shop and say, hey, what's this? And in some cases, they'll even trick you. There are Facebook groups, and I want to say I've heard this by reputation on a comic book retailer Facebook group, that there was a mom's, parental code authority group, whatever, and Savage Dragon came up as being a pervert comic, and that people were encouraging the moms to go into comic shops, locate the issue if it was just out on the stands with everything else, and then make a complaint to the city for selling pornography within reach of a minor. It depends on the state you're in whether that's going to really get you into trouble or not. But this was a thing. And if you're a store owner who's making ends meet, not necessarily doing a great service, and then suddenly you've got somebody from the city wanting to potentially investigate or fine or shut you down, which can be the case in certain counties for selling pornography to minors, even if you're not actually selling that pornography to the minors, it's just within their reach. That can be a huge problem for you as a store. And at the time, I was kind of hand waved, like, that's not really happening. People should grow up and blah, 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 blah. But it's not a cool thing to do. The same thing definitely happened. It happened in my region up here in Seattle around the Batman Damned issue where you had the bat penis in silhouette in the comic. And this actually got several shops into some significant trouble because, again, it got out with the parent group and parents went in to kind of cause trouble. And there you have it. And the retailers who are just putting the stock on the shelves often do not know that this has suddenly happened in the comic book unless somebody has told them. Many retailers do not read every comic before they put it on the shelf. They're just trying to put it on the shelf. And if suddenly a comic dramatically changes tone and they're not aware of it, they'll just put the comic on out there. There's a Mark Millar comic. I don't recall what it was, where you had super frontal nudity that kind of came out of nowhere as well. That was not cool, as they say. But the original topic here, I got kind of off track, was can a comic change its tone? The answer is yes. And can they change it back? So if you do change the tone, it often is smart for the creator, publisher, whoever it is, to inform people about the change in tone so you don't give people nasty surprises. Or on the positive side, you let people know how the comic book can be, be marketed differently. Like suddenly, if the comic is more kid friendly, it'd be a good thing to tell those shop owners that so they can market that comic to kids that are coming in that they might not have done before. But the bigger hat trick, the bigger challenge is if you have the comic and you like Savage Dragon, it went down this path for a while, and then in recent issues, I mean, and not just recent, I think for I don't know 10 issues or so, it's been a little while. The comic seems to have backed away from that. It's not doing the nudity. It's not doing the orgy scenes have been tamped down a little bit, or they're back to being more PG-13. Not consistently. I mean, characters will still curse and do other things. Assigning a rating to a comic is dodgy business anyway. But you'll definitely notice if you've been following Savage Dragon for the last 5 years, we went from one place to a different place and then almost back to the original place again. So the comic, it's like it dipped its toe in porn and then it kind of came back out of it, and now it's back to being what it is. So it can be done. Unfortunately, if you do that, I think it definitely confuses your market. It definitely confuses shops and it confuses readers. And if you are a lower selling comic book, you're going to lose audiences during that. Now, maybe you're the creator and you don't really care. Your goal is just to, create what you want to create. And that's cool. That's your choice. It's your dollar. It's your choice of how you want to get that audience. But generally speaking, comics that have dramatically changed from one thing to another have suffered. And I mean, you can even see this at a very lighter scale. So the Immortal Hulk, when it launched, was kind of body horror, Cronenberg style horror as a theme. And then it kind of segued into being political commentary for a little while. Still some horror, but less. And then it's kind of going back to I mean, it's changed its tone a bit. And definitely the title has lost some readers during this process. There have been some people who no longer read, who dropped off when it went down the political route, haven't necessarily come back now that it's starting to go back toward horror again. I mean, it's just, and it's a case where there's not a one answer fits all. I please don't hear this video and say, oh, he's advocating that once you pick a theme, you have to stick with it, never change. I'm not saying that at all. Just that, like anything else, there are consequences to your actions. So sometimes your readers will be on board for the ride, and you can, keep your readership or even pick up new readers by changing your tone. And sometimes you will lose them during that process. And by the way, just to make it clear, because whenever I talk about Al Ewing, somebody comes on and tells me that I'm defending Republicans or something. I don't know why they get that or how they get that, but that's not my point. I'm not saying that Al Ewing going into politics, because there's definitely a lot of videos that go off on, Al Ewing, Immortal Hulk, went to SJW politics and lost all of its readers. That's not true. It did lose some readers. I do not believe, though, it's because of the politics. I think if it had gone right-wing politics, left-wing politics, whatever the politics it went into, I think it was the change of tone. I think it went from being a horror book to kind of a social commentary book. And that's what caused some people to drop off of the title. I do not believe it's a bunch of Trump fans were angry because of Al Ewing. And it's just you had a book which had some pretty intense horror elements. And then a couple issues later, they're talking about Rock's Face, the social media account. And it was a different tone. I think any objective reader could read that and go, okay, some things changed here, and that's what happened. So, like I said, you could do it. I think it's dangerous to do at a low level unless you're willing to take the consequences, which is you may lose some of your readership who do not want to change tone like you do, and that's your call. But what do you think? Leave me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on it, and subscribe, introduce to a friend, get some other people in here. Let's get their opinions and have a good conversation about it. Otherwise, follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.